Welcome along to another slice of golf, the alternative hacker's view of the game. I'm here again with Ben and Chris. Chaps, how are we? Chris, good week?
Good week. Yeah, I suppose so. As much as anyone can be
having can be right now, I guess.
in this time. I've watched a lot of golf, live golf, and I've also watched several golf programs, which I know we're going to be talking about today. So, yeah, exactly. my golf consumption has been excellent. Yes.
Marvelous. Ben, all good with you, buddy?
Yeah, for those that are listening, with this is being recorded Tuesday evening, and as you all know, it's Pancake Day, or it was, if you're listening to this at a later date, and I slightly overdid it. So whilst we're recording this,
everybody will be because earliest tomorrow. So.
So yeah, feeling a little bit sick, but no, other than that, pretty good. Watched a lot of golf this weekend, consumed a lot of golf social media stuff. So yeah, excited. Done virtually nothing else this week.
Ben, your social media presence has been rife this week. Everything I'm like, that's good. I'll share that. Ben's already shared it in 17 different places on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm like, this guy is clearly loving the social media right now.
Oh yeah, got a bit of free time.
So normally we'd go straight in when talking about stuff that's been going on the tour in the last week or so. I'm going to start this episode off slightly differently. This is something I've been reading over the last week, and something I thought was fascinating. I just wanted to bring out to the masses. I'm going to take literally 3 minutes or so and talk about, weirdly, golf on the moon. Random subject to kick things off, but basically the reason I'm bringing this up was this was a news article that broke, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and basically an imaging specialist has gone through and digitally enhanced high-resolution shots that were taken on some of the original Apollo missions on the moon. Now, basically, Alan Shepard, who is the commander of Apollo 14, this is brilliant, by the way. He made a makeshift 6-iron from a collapsible tool. Which had been designed to collect rock samples, didn't use it for its actual purpose, turned it into a golf club to hit balls on the moon.
Hey, that's amazing. Did he just decide it was a 6-iron? Did he just go, this is a 6-iron, and just why is he picked 6-iron? I want to know.
I can't answer that question. Maybe it's his favourite club. I don't know. I cannot answer that one. That's not the question. Okay. But anyway, so there was a total of 2 shots, right, that were taken by Alan Shepard on the moon. The first one, I regret to inform you, was just a big dirty shank. The first golf shot that took place on the moon was a shank, just shanked it straight into a crater. Now the second one,
that's ideal, if anything.
The second one apparently hit it flush, and according to his sort of transmissions, it just went miles and miles and miles and miles. Now, through these enhanced digital scans of the original footage, this specialist has basically been able to determine how far the ball actually went when he took that second shot. Anyone care to have a guess how far he hit his 6-iron when it was on the moon?
I mean, he's not using an actual club. He's using a makeshift club. I mean, my knowledge of gravitational pull on the moon is weak at best. Non-existent. I'm gonna say a long way. If he's hit it flush, I'm gonna say quite a long way, because I would have thought things fly further.
All right, you are firmly sat on the fence and dithering there. I'm going to go
any semblance of an answer going on here? Or are you going to
350?
Okay, 350 yards. Yeah.
See, I was going a little bit further out there and going 3/4 of a mile.
Okay, 3/4 of a mile. Wow.
Zero gravity. I mean,
it's not zero gravity.
Zero gravity.
Oh, they don't float off the moon.
Next to zero gravity. Apparently, my moon knowledge is worse than Chris's. But
well, the fact you've got no gravity is worrying.
It's not that great, but if he flushed it, he's got underneath it and it's gone. Who's to say it's not gone 3/4 of a mile?
It's still going around the moon now. It's just still
it's just orbiting. It's a mini moon.
Well, you say who's not to say it went 3/4 of a mile. I mean, actually, I am to say because I've got the answer. Okay. It went 40 yards. So his claim that it went miles and miles and miles and miles. Not only was his first shot an absolute shank, his second shot, he was just doing that thing about saying he hit the ball further than you did. He hit it 40 yards. I thought Chris has got it sorted out when he was going down the line of, it's a makeshift club, so it probably hasn't gone that far. But then he went 350 yards.
I wasn't thinking quarter of a mile with a 6-iron, but I thought if he flushed a 6-iron, he's 40 yards. Wow,
yeah, big for a 6-iron. That
I can almost picture him on the moon, just thinking to himself, whatever happens, I'm going to tell him that I've absolutely flushed it, and and no one will ever know different.
I'm going to tell everyone I've hit the longest golf shot of all time. Who's going to disagree with me?
I mean, having the longest golf shot on the moon is a pretty big claim to fame. So we'll give him that.
I mean, the shank would have won, to be fair. So
yeah, his shank went 24 yards.
Well, that's probably why he took the second, right? You can't go all that way and hit a big old shank.
I mean, even a shank, but it only going 24 yards is horrific. Anyway, something a little bit different to kick things off. Right, a little bit of trivia. Let's get into it. PGA, Pebble Beach. Who watched it? Oh, I'm assuming we all watched it because that's the only semblance of golf content we can get at the moment. Who wants to take this one on first? Ben, reflections, thoughts?
Yeah, I've wrote a couple of things down. First of all, Maverick McNeely, best name in all of sport. I think it might be.
In golf, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, being called Maverick, you've got a lot to live up to, and I think at the weekend he certainly lived up to that. Last week, watching, it's gone from my head where they were playing, but I thought it might have been a flash in the pan, which worried me a little bit about Jordan Spieth. But him coming back and putting in another solid performance was just so good to see. I think, again, it's golf's always better when the big names are up and contending. So to see him sort of back, it's pretty good. Felt for Nate Lashley. I do have to admit he was excellent all week and then had an absolute meltdown on 16th green. I'm not sure whether you two both saw it.
Yeah.
Kind of felt for him there. I've been there.
Turns out he's human. So,
and then there was quite a little bit of behaviour that was frowned upon on the 16th green.
Yeah. The putter slam.
Yeah, putter slam. By all accounts, an audible F-bomb as well, a hole before. But, I mean, you can't take anything away from Berger. It's absolutely clutch. Like nerves of steel going down the last. And to finish on an eagle when all he really needed was a par would have probably have done it. I think it's incredible, really.
Yeah.
I just love the courses. Like genuinely, I just enjoy seeing the golf played there. And I think we've mentioned it before, Pebble Beach is definitely one of my courses that I want to play at some point in my life. And every time I look at it, I'm just like, oh, get me to Pebble Beach so that I can go play there. And you know what? I think this scoring on the Thursday. By the way, it's amazing what Fantasy League does to your golf viewing, and suddenly you're like, you're paying attention to players that you would never have that you may not even know of. B, you're paying attention to players that you would never normally pay attention to, and C, I'm also there going, wait, which course is he on? If he's playing on Pebble today, I need him to play well tomorrow on Spieth. And I'm like, this is nuts. I'm fully in on golf Fantasy League. So,
I mean, I was getting WhatsApps from you. I think what was it, like 3 holes in about Cantlay? Because he started off on fire.
I'd emailed the Sunday Red crowd, and I'd put in the group, and I was like, "Do you take Cantlay's expensive?" And he was expensive for that week. Do you take Cantlay, or do you just kind of go for an average? The week before, I'd gone for quite an average price point on every player, and he was, what was he, 7 under through 7? I thought, yeah, I've fucked up here. I've really absolutely should have put it in my team. So yeah, his golf over the first 2, 3. I mean, the whole weekend was good, but just unbelievable on that first day.
Yeah. I mean, so back on the Daniel Berger subject really quickly. So interesting, he's actually pulled out of the Genesis Invitational this weekend. Has he just been on the lash for 48 hours?
Yes. Oh, yes. He's been having a great time.
He's loving life. or probably the more the more realistic and sensible one would be, or what his PR team will say, will be something like, yeah, he now doesn't need to play in that event in order to get the points he needs, or something along those lines. But yeah, he's been on the lash for, I mean, wouldn't we all?
Yes.
Been on the lash for a few days.
Absolutely. Patrick Cantlay has gone straight into my fantasy team this weekend.
Great. I'm looking forward to, I want to get some little teasers from you guys, because I haven't put my team together yet. So I'm okay if you let me know who's in your team. That's fine.
That's fine. I'll give you a few.
I assume you've both put Spieth in now that you've just bigged him up.
Nope.
No. Interesting. You don't reckon he can do it 3 weeks in a row?
That's the thing. I need a good few months of performances before I can start really trusting in him. I think.
Let's be honest. He's still not winning. Let's be clear. He's still not winning.
Sure, but if you're in the top, if you've got players in the top 20 in your team, you're loving life.
Yeah.
I think the big thing for Spieth as well, as much as I haven't picked him, is he's hitting those putts that we could only ever dream of hitting. And I think when you watch Spieth in his pump, he was never great off the tee, but playing those outrageous shots from the rough and then just hitting those putts where you're like, how is that possible? Yeah. I think that's a sign that he's feeling pretty good about his game, and what's coming out of his mouth is promising as well. Like, he's saying himself that he's not felt like this in years, which is good. It's good for the game.
He's saying a lot of it is physical, right? He's made changes or whatever. Do we actually think it's physical, or is it just up here in his head?
I think it might have started off physical, because I think we talked about how he's looking to add more speed, power, and distance to his game. I actually think it's got to the position where he's overthinking the physical side of it now. He's attributing, if you like, the downfall he's had over the last few years. I think he's just zeroing in on, it's physical. I tried to change and now it's all gone skew-if. I actually think it's probably got into a bit of a vicious cycle that it clearly didn't work for him at the start, and he might have tried to make changes, and now I think it's up top, because I mean, yeah, he came back on Sunday, but when you're the overnight leader, right, with 2-shot lead, to then play your first 3 holes on the Sunday and go to one shot behind the leader because you've dropped pretty much a shot on every single hole so far. That's not, to me, that's a mental thing. That's not physical.
He's been
I could be wrong. I'm not an expert, but that's my thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's been taking lessons off Tony Finau there, hasn't he? Just lead on day 3, mess it up on day 4. Crap.
Right, quick question there on this. Yeah. We've spoken about Spieth. He never quite reached the heights of Spieth. But why do we think Rickie Fowler's on the tumble? Because he was there at the weekend, but he just, give it 4 or 5 years ago, Rickie was in contention. He was making Ryder Cup teams, and as much as he wasn't necessarily blowing fields away, he was always there or thereabouts. I've just had a look. He's 66th in the world rankings at the moment. You said that 3 years ago, you'd have said, no chance. Rickie Fowler is... I've always been a little bit cautious with Fowler, because I never thought he really pushed on and really went and won things. But he was still, top 10, grinded them out every week.
He's probably made a fair amount of money, to be fair.
Yeah.
His putting was it his putting this weekend? Over the last few weeks, his putting has definitely been weak, and I always think of Rickie Fowler with having decent putting, but that might just be me, just my view of it, but rather than actual stats. Yeah, I don't know.
Because it's not, he's never, I can't recollect any time, I may be putting my foot in it here, I can't recollect any time where he's come out and said he's actively chasing more speed. Spieth, right. You can kind of put his downfall to that moment where he said, look, I'm trying to get longer, and then it just different things started to go wrong, whereas Fowler just seems to almost be on an unfortunate steady decline, which I don't want to see it happen.
I don't know if it's decline. I think, being brutally honest, I think the field and the standard of players now is just really, really freaking good. Yeah. We're talking about picking fantasy golf teams, and we're now literally going down a list, and you can go down about 30 guys and be like, yeah, they're all really, really good, who I'd probably want to stick in the team.
I looked at that and I was scrolling through it, and there are major winners that I'm just scrolling past, like no, not picking them.
Yeah,
I mean, even if you look at people like, I don't know, let's look at Alanto Griffin as an example. Now, technically, he's not one big yet, but you'd still say, his ranking. I don't know what his ranking is in the world, but right, he'd be in that group of players where you might not be someone you talk about straight away, but if you go down a list of players, you'll be like, yeah, actually, he's a good player, Alanto Griffin.
You know what? I think, as Peter Finch said last week, golf is hard, right? Yeah. And actually, to have one good season after another, to have 8 good seasons in a row, 10 good seasons in a row is nuts to think that's even possible. Like, the people that do it, you put them on that next level. And, Rickie's been there or thereabouts for as long as I can remember. Like, I can't think of a time where I was like, Rickie just wasn't here this year. And currently he's in that space right now, but it might be having an off few months. But do you know what I mean? Like, it happens. Do we read anything more into it? I
don't know. Only time will tell. I mean, the talent's there, but I don't know. I just think there's so many talented guys that are A, talented, but B, guys that can go and win. I think that's the other point as well. Yeah. That, I don't know, maybe going back, you'd have a clutch of players who would just come through on the Sunday, right? They would just emerge and they'd have the bottle and see it through and get it done. I just think there's so many guys on tour that can put 4 days together now and be challenging at the end of it. We'll see. I mean, I hope he comes back because he's obviously one of my favourites. Yeah. He's not in the TW Favourites Club. That's still a club reserved for 2 members.
Right. Okay.
I would say Patrick Cantlay is on the cusp of it, though. I did actually send that message to the boys.
Really? Yeah. Based on his gears, or based on his golf, or what?
It's a bit of both. Part of, to be honest. I just think he's a really good golfer. I think I enjoy watching him. I do also like his gears quite a lot.
What about Colin Morikawa? I thought he'd be up there for you.
Morikawa, no. Right. Rewind. Come back. So there are two members currently in the Favourites Club.
Come on, Chris. Xander and Morikawa.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm with you. Okay,
all I'm saying is that duo might become a trio very soon.
Right. So you're not booting someone out?
No.
No. Okay.
I'm all about inclusion, mate.
Okay. Fine. Got you.
Final thing from me about Pebble Beach in the weekends. A good buddy of ours. She messaged us on the final day on Sunday because this is brilliant, and I won't mention her by name, but basically she's just a classic thing that she does, which is obviously she saw Pebble Beach. She's like, I love this course so much. Straight onto Google Maps. So she Google mapped the whole course basically, and she just looked at first the course, and then obviously she's gone on to looking at, well, I wonder what the houses are like that back onto the course. No word of a lie, pretty much every house that's aligning or adjoins even to Pebble Beach has basically got a putting green in its back garden, and not only a putting green or a hole that is modelled on one of the greens or one of the holes on Pebble Beach. So just when you're, on a Tuesday night listening to us play golf, there are people in the world who've got mock holes of Pebble Beach in their back garden.
So I had a question about this because I was thinking about this. Do you think, because if you look at the picture, it's literally all the holes, all the houses that back onto the course, right? And all the gardens that back on, there was what appears to be golf holes or greens in that. Do you think that's something that is organised through Pebble Beach? Like, do you think they actually provide that service of creating that? Or is it just literally these are absolute golf fans who just all happen to...
I mean, I'm going to go with, look, you have to be a bit of a golf nut and at least have an understanding of the game to want to live on Pebble Beach. I'm just going to say that they're massive, massive golf fans.
I would do it 100%. Like, I would be putting that in. That's going in there.
Yeah. If the chances are, if you can afford to live in the Pebble Beach postcode, you can probably afford to get your garden landscape to mimic the 7th.
Sure.
I reckon there's probably a local landscaping company that have absolutely got their business model nailed down.
Oh, there's a for sale sign. Let's just drop our brochure in.
I love it. But what about fantasy league teams? How did we all do?
Should we move on from me quite quickly? So I didn't score particularly well at the weekend because I forgot.
Yeah, you were a no-show.
I was a no-show. Embarrassing.
There was maybe 37 messages from Ben and I being like, dude, you've got to pick your team. Time's running out.
I had a very busy week last week. And I've already picked my team for this week. So there we go.
You have. And then, so the week before, I, out of nowhere, got a win in the PGA and a second place in the European Tour. Absolutely buzzing. Thought to myself, I've cracked this. I know exactly what I'm doing. Picked the lineup. By the way, I don't know if this is definitely not a thing that you should do, but three of the guys that played in my team the week before, I was like, they've earned their spot. They can bring that back, and I've put them in. I put them in the following weeks. I thought, well, they've earned their spot. They can keep it until they fuck up, and then they're out.
I've definitely done that this week, by the way.
Didn't work. Ben and I did not have a good showing. We did not represent the pod well in the Sunday Rig leagues. How do we end up, Ben? Where we in the paid one we were like
13th and 14th.
Yeah, out of 20, lower table. Poor. And to be honest with you, I was never in it. I don't think I got into the top 10 at any point. I think 13th or 14th was the highest I got throughout the whole weekend.
I mean, so you pick 6 players. 3 of mine missed the cut. 2 of yours missed the cut. You're never going to be in with a shout when half your team misses the cut. Yeah. I was riding the Patrick Cantlay train the whole way to a 13th place finish. Everyone else sucked.
Siwoo Kim missing the cut crushed me. I thought, come on, he's been having good times. By the way, players, this is an example. 2 players that I would not normally pay any attention to, but for the last few weeks have been loving. Matt Jones, just 60-odd points this week, 60-odd points the week before. Just a very consistent player. Doesn't get any TV time, no coverage whatsoever. Never saw him once. So he's relying on the app for that. And Kyle Stanley, also another one who don't see much of on the TV. But again, just 70 points this week. I can't remember what it was the week before, but just very consistent. I was like, if you're going to get top 20s, top 30s, I'll take that away. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Just need to start being more raucous on the course, get them on the TV screen so you can really get behind them.
Yeah, no, when you're like looking at Sky going, come on, can you just please show me someone that you've never shown before on my TV so that I can just see how my team are doing? That would be great. Thank you very much.
I mean, so this week coming up, I've shamelessly I picked DJ and then went from there. That was basically my tactic. I kind of just built everything around having DJ in the team.
Yeah.
I then, once he was in, I basically just defaulted back to guys that have played really well at the weekend. This is probably why you shouldn't choose your team on a Monday. So I got DJ in, and then purely off the back of this weekend, I've got Cantlay, Lashley, and McNeely in.
Brilliant.
You won't do anything now this weekend.
Yeah.
And we've already got, okay, so there's, by the way, in the free league, if you're listening, I mean, if you're listening, it'll be too late by then. For the future, there's a free league and a pay league. The free one, there's always going to be spaces. So jump on it and come and get involved in the Sunday Red group for sure.
I'll tell you what, one player who I am completely avoiding at all costs is Phil Mickelson. Can't hit the ball on the planet at the moment.
Oh,
absolute.
Do we need to
talk the weekend as well?
Do we need to talk about Phil?
Phil just having his absolute meltdown.
I think we do. I think for me, when I was watching it, I was like, this answers our question that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. And I'm just like, Phil, hang up your boots, mate. Unfortunately, the PGA Tour isn't for you anymore.
So I'm gonna for those who've not seen it, I'm gonna try and give you a play-by-play breakdown of what happened on the 18th. Fellas, shout if I get anything wrong. So basically 18th hole, he was already, I think he was 6 over already by this point. You know, it was obviously a bad day at the races. Picks up his driver, and we all thought, you know, normal reaction nowadays when Phil's got his driver, like, oh god. There's water all the way down the left. Where's this going? Absolute howitzer, straight down the middle. I was like, hey, what a drive. Here he is. Here we go. Probably about 300 yards, straight drive, right down the middle, perfect. So, that's nice to see. Next shot, pulls out his 3-wood, pin seeking, just proceeds to hit the delicious hook straight into the rocks, pinged off into the sea. I was like, yeah, that's why you're 6 over for this one, Phil. Not content with that, he then took a drop, proceeded to do exactly the same thing, missed it again, hit the rocks again, into the sea again. Another drop, fired it towards the green, hooked it again, and luckily just about embedded by the side of a bunker, again precariously close to the rocks. Eventually, Sorry, lefty. So
in my head, I was like, which way round is which side of the?
Yeah, sorry. Anyway, I think he ended up making a
quad. Yeah,
quad.
Yeah, he cut out with his glove on as well. I think that was a sign.
Tells you all
sign of how it went.
I honestly thought the third one, when he hit the third one, I thought that's also going in the water. When does this end? I was like, please make it stop. He didn't give a shit, did he? He was just like, I'm done. Thank you. See you later.
Yeah. You could see he was done from. This is what I really dislike about Phil at the moment is when, I don't know, I always feel like when he's a few behind the count and he's not playing great and he realizes he hasn't got it for that week and he can't make the cut. I don't want to say he throws it, but I actually feel for the players around him in his playing group because you can tell he's not trying at all.
I really agree with you, but can I just stop you there? Because I 100% agree with you. I feel for the other players around him as well. Tim, does that behaviour remind you of anyone?
I had a feeling
it not only reminds me of someone, it even reminds me of a particular course I've played on with that someone, and just being on the course, just being like, "Oh, come on!"
Yeah, and I agree with you. When someone's behaving like that, it does bring down the other people in the group for sure. Yeah, that's why I agree with you, man. Pardon?
That's why I've walked off before. I'm like, I'll let you boys have your day. I'm going to go and sit in the bar. I had a feeling one of you two would say this. So I was watching it. And I was like, yeah, that's bad. And I'm like, yeah, that's bad. That's bad on my part. But I was watching it like, actually, this guy's in his 50s. He flies a private jet around the world because he's won so many golf tournaments. No, he's a lot worse than what I'm doing. I'm shit. I play off 12. This guy used to be one of the best players in the world. He just shouldn't be doing it.
By the way, I will say for the guys listening, I do feel like Ben is mostly a change guy. I know he had a bit of a wobble over the winter when it was a bit wet, and he just went to his classic, I'll just play the wedge game. But mostly a change guy. But there was a time several years ago where I was teamed up with Ben and he walked off on the 9th, and that makes life really tricky when
I would say that was post lesson, and I had no idea what a golf swing was. It was going left, it was going right. I was losing balls all over the place.
No excuses.
You know what? I hate it.
You left your teammate hanging. I am pleased to say that Ben is a changed man, and that has not happened for a long time. But yeah, just when you were describing that, I was like, this does remind me of.
It's always in there somewhere. It's always in
there.
It's all in there.
Whenever you're on the opposition team, you're like, how do I get that Ben out? How do I get that out?
Mentally feeble. Anyway, let's move on from digging Ben out. Actually, just before we do, so the last thing to say on fantasy golf, just before we move on. So what we're going to do moving forward is we're going to actually turn this into a little bit of a running competition between the three of us. We're going to keep a tally week by week until the end of the season. I think we'll probably do whoever finishes highest among the three of us will give 3 points. Whoever finished second will get 1 point. Obviously, if you finish bottom of us three, you don't get any points at all. Now, at the end of the season, actually, what we'd really like is some help from you guys who are listening in terms of what do you think we should be playing for? What should the prize be? Now, let's have nothing lewd. We're not doing stupid stuff. We're not going crazy. I'm not taking a golf buggy and driving it down the A3. We're talking about fairly fairly sensible and respectable ideas, please. Whether it be playing a particular course where the two losers pay for the winner's green fees or something like that. We'd just love to know, what do you think we should be playing for? Going to throw it out there. Let us know.
We need a budget. Like I don't. What are we budgeting this to? I don't want a trip to Pebble Beach would be lovely, but I can't afford. Well, actually, if you two are paying, I'm all right with it. But
we're probably
are we going like green fee of like the London club kind of green, like £100? Are we going a bit less? What are we doing?
Let's go for about that. Let's put like £100 cash.
It's got to be under £100. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Let's not get absolutely crazy because I mean, as we've just heard, my skills at picking might not actually be that great.
I'm ready. I need to win. So are we last week into consideration where you were a no-show, or is that?
No, start from this week.
Okay.
We'll go from this week.
So your victory the other week, mate, unfortunately, is scrapped.
That's right. What about my place, 16th place? I mean, come on, that'd have been
gone from the history books.
So yeah, let us know. Hit us up on all the Sunday Red channels.
Got Slice of Golf channels now, mate.
All the Slice of Golf channels.
We
now have a new Twitter handle. You can hit us up on Instagram as well. Just let us know. Get in touch. Right.
Nuts on the socials. So
yeah. From I was going to say from the ridiculous to the sublime, but some of this was all equally ridiculous. So we've been watching a bit of content over the last week in terms of films and documentaries. One was very serious. One was absolutely not serious. Which one should we start with? Can we go the serious one or the not serious one first?
Let's do serious first. Get the serious one out.
Serious first? Right. So we briefly touched upon this 2 episodes back about the documentary Tiger, which has recently been released on Sky Documentaries. You can get it on all the usual Sky platforms and channels. It's a 2-parter. I think the whole thing is about 3.5 hours long in total, something like that. I think it's fair to say there are some mixed feelings about the film in this group. Chris, I'm going to come to you first on this. Just go for it. Tell me what you thought.
General thoughts. Within however many 5 minutes of the first episode, I was on Amazon ordering my 1-year-old golf clubs because I thought he's already 6 months behind, so I've got to sort this out. The first episode was for me, and look, I know Tiger was not involved in any of it, right? So this is basically there's not anyone really close to him, from my understanding of who was in it, was actually anyone close to them now. It's kind of a lot of people from his past. But I thought the first episode I was like, I like it. I like this a lot. The second episode was really just focused. For me, I know a lot of people really did not like the second episode. The second episode was just basically rehashing, taking everyone through with what happened, his downfall, right? And I'm just kind of like, for me, I was like, it happened. We know this happened. I get that you're trying to make it more entertaining, maybe. Like they're being, they get paid based on how many viewers this gets, and it would certainly get a lot of views. I think it'll create a buzz. But for me, I was a bit like, I was just a bit like meh about it. If I'm using Ben's tiering system, I was just a bit like meh. Like there was some interesting discussion points that I thought an interesting point of views. But aside from that, it was just kind of like, I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. He went through this. I think for me, what was more interesting is kind of an insight into his, it's not really an insight into his psychology. It's more of an insight into what people think his psychology is, if that makes sense, which I think is, again, because he's not involved, quite loose. But, the fact, you never know how much of this is true. The fact is that he was willing to just like completely cut people out of his world, I think gives you an insight into, I'm not even going to say like him, I'm going to say like, I reckon there's elite athletes all over the world that do stuff like this, right? I don't think he's alone in that behavior. I think what you get from it is a clear understanding of what it takes to be that level. And I think he just did not sway from it. I think early years looked a bit father family led by the looks of it, yeah, I don't know. It was I thoroughly enjoyed the first episode. Second episode, I was just a bit like meh. It was not for me. It wasn't like I've seen lots of real negativity around it. I'm just like it wasn't that. It happened. We know it happened. We know he's not. We know he's human. We know he's not this whatever. Yeah. That was that was it really.
Yeah, I completely agree. I watched the first episode and I thought it was absolutely fascinating, right? To look at his upbringing and how, I suppose, if you want to, I don't know if you want to call it something else, but the rigid structures, if you like, that were in place in his life.
Military.
Yeah, it was basically a military upbringing.
Yeah,
it was just a military upbringing that centered on golf.
Yeah.
So it was fascinating to see the kind of the mindset that he adopted, and obviously how everything in his life was geared towards golf. But there's some really interesting other elements to it as well. Was the mental aspects of it, which was say when he was competing with Phil for the Masters, and just how he thought, right, he's taking a 3-wood, I'm going to take a driver. If I hit this, sorry, other way around.
Yeah, other way around. Yeah,
taking a driver. He was taking 3-wood, and he's like, if I can hit my 3-wood, let's say 30 yards further than his driver, I've got him, and I've beaten him. I've beaten him just psychologically. Like, that is fascinating, because that's the mindset, right? That's champion mindset and just relentless. So I thought that was fascinating. Second episode, completely the same. I completely agree with you, Chris. I just felt it was so overly focused on. To me, it felt like reveling a little bit in his downfall. And there was,
I thought it was slightly ironic. The guy came on and started talking about the crab analogy of them, someone reaching to the top of the bucket and then all the other crabs try and bring them down.
Yeah.
Well, quite ironically, this is exactly what the whole documentary is based upon.
100%, because there was something, and it was quite telling, the fact that the Masters win, that took up all of, I would say, at most about 10 minutes of this second episode, right? And this is a 2.5 hour long episode. And there was a quote towards the end when there was a talking head who said something. I think the quote was something along the lines of, "Oh, well, the same people that are reveling in his win here are the same people who were trying to tear him down, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, guys, this is exactly what this film is.
Yeah.
It almost feels like you were so keen just to kind of show this guy's descent and his downfall that it actually felt like you'd made this film like in 2018, and then you just added the Masters win as a bolt on to the end of it.
Yeah,
like it didn't feel like a full kind of arc of a story. It just kind of felt like, here's a guy, really strict upbringing, and we're just going to show you how his world fell apart, and we're going to spend ages talking about that. Didn't like it.
Yeah, and you know what? I quite liked. There was the guy that was friends. I can't remember people's names. The guy that was friends with his dad at the golf club, and he was very much like, he's like, I'll hold my hands up. I was a terrible role model, and I actually quite appreciated that. And because he was one of the guys that took, whether it was genuine or not, but took some level of responsibility and was like, do you know what? I was not an acceptable role model. And looking back, I wish I'd been better. And I think everyone else is kind of, Tiger's the problem. There weren't many people that were going, you know what? I helped create that scenario.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think it's very easy to point the finger and blame. And we all know, like all of us know, we're not idiots. Like we know Tiger's downfall. We know what's gone on. That film just, I think, brought people into it felt almost a bit like EastEnders, like soap opera style, but just without the main character. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, it would be interesting to. I would like to hear a lot of it from Tiger's point of view, but I'm again focused on I'd love to hear about his upbringing from his point of view. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, Ben, I know you've been keen to talk about.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to jump in and kind of interrupt you, because it's interesting to get kind of both your view, and also I've got quite strong views on it. Just I grew up idolising Tiger. It was the reason why I started playing golf. There's no two ways about it, and I very much, I quite openly admit, I'd put him on a pedestal. I did not like it at all. I thought it was a couple of positives. seeing the whole how he was brought up, I thought was fascinating. The mindset thing of something I was going to jump in when you were talking about it just then, Tim, was where his dad used to like jangle keys and try to put him off in his back.
Really
I thought was just amazing to hear it. And then another positive was from hearing from Steve Williams, his old caddy, because ever since the split, I think not really much has been said, or I'd never really understood what happened or why, and almost Stevie Williams had almost been the villain in the piece, and it was quite good to hear from him. But that's, for me, is about where the positives kind of finished. And I think alarm bells started ringing. Whenever the subject of the documentary distances himself from it, you're kind of like, there's something probably not going to be too great about this.
But can you imagine them ringing him up there, hey, we're going to make a documentary about your downfall and about all the shit that went on in that time period. Are you up for getting involved in that? Well, obviously not.
But then that's where I have a problem. Anyone who goes to watch a Tiger Woods documentary, now, unless you live under a rock, you're going to know who Tiger Woods is. If you're going to watch a Tiger Woods documentary, the chances are you're a sports fan. If you're a sports fan, you know what he's done. Who at all, other than the people that are starring in it, that are just after a payday, I'm going to call it that, who benefits from hearing these interviews? Not him, not his kids, not his ex-wife, not his current wife, not his mum. When they started bringing up the stories about his dad, not himself, not his new caddy. I was sat there at the end like, why was this made? I don't really get it. It's just trying to drag Tiger down. Like,
I'll tell you
the purpose of it.
I'll tell you why it's made. Like with any print, like the Daily Mail prints bullshit clickbait articles, it gets eyeballs on screens, which pays people money to create more shit like that.
But I think generally, if you're going to create stuff, I understand there's going to be clickbaity stuff out there, but surely you want to make something that on the whole is liked. I can't imagine many people stepping away from that being like, actually, I appreciate that was a good watch. Because it was embarrassing. I actually felt, I don't know the guy. Chances are I'm never going to meet the guy. But I felt embarrassed for him because I was like, no one benefits from this. Like, no one benefits. I don't benefit as a fan hearing interviews with the people that, like, not cause his downfall, because that was, as part of himself. And I'm just like, why are we not focusing on how great he is or how great he was?
Yeah, no,
it's a part of the story. It is a part of the story. If you're creating a documentary about Tiger, 50% of it should not be about the 3 years where he made mistakes and he spent a lot of time injured. It should be about the whole piece. And
I don't think it was ever pitched as a whole piece.
That's me. I hated it. I didn't like the angle of it. I much preferred the one that was made and was released like a year ago, the one that was on Sky Documentaries, the drip fed one. And I cannot wait for the Last Dance equivalent, because there's going to come a point where Tiger participates in one of them and makes an MJ-like series, and it will be excellent.
I'm going to disagree with you slightly here. I don't think you can just not tell the shit part of someone's story.
Yeah.
No. I'm not saying that, but the focal point of in my opinion, the greatest golfer in history, you've made 50% of the whole documentary about his, about the bad side to him, rather than the other 35 years of his life.
Yeah, but pause. All the good stuff's been made already, Ben. As you said, they made a documentary the year before that covered all of the good stuff. So they weren't gone into that going, why would we create another thing that's exactly the same as the thing that was created a year ago? And let's look at this from an angle that no one else has gone to before. So I think they have filled a gap that people haven't heard that story. Sure, it didn't include Tiger, but people haven't heard that story. And I think it's important. I do think it's important to tell the shit side of it. We can't just sit here and pretend that, that didn't happen, or I think you have to tell that part of the story. You do, because I think it does educate people. I've never been and never will be an elite athlete, but I think it highlights a lot of issues that go on in the sporting world. Like, Tiger is not alone. Like, let's not. Well, I mean, we could talk about footballers and etc. Like, this shit goes on in across elite level sport, and I think you just don't ever. It's just kind of pushed under the carpet, right? And I think this is an interesting. as I said, it was a bit meh for me, but it's an interesting approach for me. I think these stories I do think they need to be told.
I think the trouble was, right, I genuinely think they set off to make the right thing, which was a story about a guy who's so driven and so, everything was calculated, right, in his childhood and his upbringing. He was literally designed and programmed, if you like, to be an absolute golf champion.
Beast.
And you're right, and you're right, like that's gonna, something like that is there's always going to be something that unravels, because I think you can only be that kind of programmed or that kind of wound up for so long. So I think they absolutely needed to tell the full story and the kind of the downfall and the controversies and all those things. I think where they went wrong is it felt like they started off on this mission to make that movie, and about halfway through it, when they started going into the controversies and the downfall, they just kind of went into that but never came back.
Never came back.
Yeah,
that was the issue. And you could, if you've watched the Diego Maradona film, right, you see, that's another good example of that. But that's beautifully done, that film, in terms of it charts all the kind of scandal or the controversy that came with him, but it also still looks at what the legacy he is. What's he left? What happens afterwards? How did he leave the sport? The issue was, it never came back from really wallowing and having this warts and all look at his unraveling, and that was my issue with it. I didn't think that the ambition was wrong or what.
You kind of felt like it should be a trilogy, right? There should be another part. There was a part.
Yeah, exactly. There'd been another episode which talks about, let's say, the Masters come back and what his legacy is and what he leaves for people after him. Brilliant.
I genuinely would like to hear about his journey since then from a non-golf perspective. I'd like to know what he's been doing. I think that would be I do think that would be an interesting story to tell. But you're right, it stopped, and it was like, he's a shitbag.
And that's where I think the MJ sort of thing, it will either it will get him to say yes, and they will have to include warts and all, or it just won't happen. And Tiger knows what happened.
Yeah,
it's obvious. Obviously, knows what happens, and I would like to think he would say, right, yeah, let's do it at some point. I don't know. I felt like it was too much about, right, let's bash him, let's drag him down.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, and I can see how that would. It did come across that way, but
it, like I said, it is completely part of the story. So we do need to know about it. I just thought, it just kept going on and on about it, and I was like, come on, move on.
Yeah. For sure.
And I think the reason you have to talk about it is because you have to highlight that behavior is not okay, right? But I think it also highlights, Tim, what you said, like someone who puts themselves under that level of pressure is going to break at some point. And I think that is part of the education process. I genuinely believe that will highlight things for people going, you know what, like I need to be more balanced, or whatever that looks like, or whatever that means for that person. So I do think that part of the story needs to be told.
That's one thing. I know it kicked off probably a week, and even now discussions between me and my dad about, what's the right way, what's the wrong way to kind of raise a kid, and when should you get them to specialize in sports and doing this and doing that. That's a rabbit hole that we've gone down and knocked out in 3 weeks.
I can't remember which player it is. There's a guy on I've seen it like twice in the last week, so I know it's a repeat, but there's which player is it? Literally didn't specialize in golf until and he's quite young. I'd say he's at 22 now. I can't remember who it is. I'll find it out. But didn't specialize in golf until he was like 19. He played college hockey, ice hockey, and he still now plays ice hockey, training for golf. He's like, all my injuries started when I stopped playing ice hockey. And he's like, now I play ice hockey. He's like, I feel good. I feel fresh. I hit the ball further. He's like, he just loves it. He's like, I was hitting the ball further than everyone at college because I played ice hockey, because I built up the rotational power, etc. He's like, if I can do it on ice, if I can do it on a stable ground with spikes in, I'm happy days. So yeah, this is an interesting conversation for another week for sure.
Sure. Well, moving on to sort of lighter-hearted fare, should we say? Another program was aired over. I think it was back end of last week, which we've all been watching and thoroughly enjoying. Ben, I want to get your review on this because I was in stitches watching this.
I came about watching it. I'd seen it advertised on Sky, and it was one of those that I just kept forgetting to put it on. We sat down with the family the other day, and they were moaning at me for watching so much golf. So I was like, right, what can I find which is not directly golf, but it's still somewhat golf? And I stumbled across Rob and Romesh. They're two of my favourite comedians anyway. For those who don't know, Rob Beckett and Romesh Ranganathan, they are excellent together. Rob, by the looks of it, has just about picked up a golf club in the last year or so in lockdown. Romesh hadn't at all. If you haven't watched it yet, it's on Sky One. Go and get it. Go and start watching it. It was hilarious. My brother, as soon as he got in from work, he put it on and watched it as well. Just the way they tee off at Wentworth, getting Justin Rose involved. I was giggling from start to finish, and
I was crying.
Very envious as well. Getting to go. I mean, there are not many people get to play St Andrews, the home of golf, and for your very first golf shot ever.
So right, let's paint the picture here. Rob has clearly, and they start off the show. Rob, they're driving along, and they're talking like, so how quickly have you got hooked into this game? He's like, yeah, the slide into golf addiction has been rapid, and I think we can all I just started laughing because I was like, we can all relate to that. We go from like picking up a club, having never picked up a club, and then be like 2 minutes later, you're like, I love this game. Tell me how I get to Portugal. Tell me how I do this. Tell me how I do that. And he's clearly on that journey now, which I think is great. And then he challenges. They drive up to St Andrews. And so Rob's like, yeah, I might have done it here. We've brought him to like one of the hardest golf courses in the world, and his first ever golf shot, his first ever effort at swinging a golf club is going to be on the first tee at St Andrews. I'm like, what on earth is going? Like, I was, to be fair, he made contact. I was like, I mean, good effort, but yeah, it was never. I don't want to give any spoilers, but it was never going to go well, was it? But yeah, I was crying, absolutely crying with laughter the whole way through, mainly because it's so relatable, right? I was watching it just going, yep, done that, been there, I relate to that, that's great, love that. Oh yeah, loved it, absolutely loved it.
And it's the type of show as well that's it's enjoyable for anyone. Almost sounds like I'm making a pitch for someone here, but my mum gets sick of the amount of golf that I watch on TV. So she was like, oh yeah, put it on, and she absolutely loved it. So I think if you're struggling to watch, jump it on.
If your partner doesn't like golf and hates how much golf you play, they will thoroughly enjoy this show and be looking at you like, yeah, this is you, isn't it? And you'll be like, yeah, man, this is me, 100%.
I mean, just some particular highlights for me. I mean, when Rob was caddying for Beef and he was being asked for tips on how he should be playing a particular hole. I mean, the phrase, yeah, I just fuck it down the middle. I'm now going to add that to my on-course vocabulary because that was just absolutely gold when he said that. It was just incredible. And then from going there to his apparent self-rule, which is he tees off, doesn't really give a shit where the ball goes. If there's any kind of even a hint that he's not going to be happy with the shot, he just says, "No, fuck it, I'll go down the fairway and just take a drop." Definitely not a rule, but I mean, please watch it.
For me, the driving range with Justin Rose, I was in tears. Rob actually improved after Justin's lesson, but there was one moment where they're on there, and I can't remember which guy it was. They take a shot, and you just hear this immediate dung. Like, it's the classic shank into the side. They've hit like a TV like stand or something. I'm just like,
It was at that stage as well. I was watching it. I thought they actually now look genuinely nervous. Where kind of TV people are almost not above the law sort of thing, but they're there to make TV, and there's certain parameters that they're just going to get away with. They're there to make TV, but they looked actually nervous. They were putting someone in danger on the drive.
Yeah. And I think when like Rob was clearly in a place where he understood the occasion, like he understood that they're very privileged to be playing at such amazing courses, St Andrews, Wentworth, etc. And I think he was partly nervous because he's like, I'm loving this game. I now know how much of a thing this is. He's like, I don't want to fuck this up.
Yeah.
And I think we can all, as again, one thing that I'm watching about this is so relatable for all golfers. Like watching this, I can see myself going through the journeys that they're doing. I thought, and just the way it ends when they get to do the long drive, they're like, "You'll be my golf buddy now, won't you?" And he's like, "I'm absolutely going to be your golf buddy now. Like I'm hooked." I'm like, "This is how it starts. All you need is one person to get a good hit off the tee, and you're hooked."
You're absolutely right. It's like because we can all relate to, I suppose, the first time we played, whatever you want to call it, like a big boys course or a big girls course. That feeling of on the tee of like, this looks more difficult than I've played before. All of a sudden, not quite sure if I fancy this, and really don't want to fuck this one into the trees.
They did look so nervous on the tee once.
Yeah.
In Rob's practice swing where he took a divot out the tee.
Oh God. Yeah.
Mud pelt off the tee.
I mean, I will. Yeah, exactly. Mud pelt. I mean, I will finish our fight by saying that never finishes. I've still frequently addressing the ball on the tee, and we still have an absolute wallop in my back from someone taking practice shots and hitting a divot into my back. That still happens.
We have one friend who is consistently guilty of it as well.
I just, if you have not watched that show yet, Rob and Romesh versus golf, go and watch it. We've
not done it any justice there as well.
No, we haven't. Someone listening to this has just heard us giggling away, thinking about moments on the show. This is made for shit listening. I've no doubt about it. Just go and watch it. You'll love it.
We used up all our good reviews on Tiger. We're amateur hackers. There's only so much good reviewing we've got in us. So just give us the free pass on this one. Segueing on from Rob and Romesh, obviously, any time that there's exposure for golf at a sort of an amateur level or a beginner entry level on TV can only be a good thing, right? Because all the way through last year, golf had a massive boom, mainly because it's one of the only things you could actually do in a lot of the restriction situations. But without a doubt, definitely a whole new group of people up and down the countries, around the world, picking up golf for the first time. The big thing we need to address is obviously, how does that carry on? Now, 2021, we're probably going to be in a similar situation, I guess. I'm not even going to go into the reeds of restriction and what's going to happen with ending lockdown, but you can be pretty sure that there are some whisperings around early March as being the first time we might be able to play golf again. So you can guarantee there's going to be that kind of upsurge of people picking up for the first time again. So where do we think golf can go from here? Is there anything that it needs to capitalize on, or is there anything that started changing in the last year, do we think, that kind of needs to kind of carry on with momentum? If we got to a tipping point where things are starting to change a bit? Who wants to go on this?
Yeah, I'll jump on. I'm worried for golf. And I'll tell you why. I know it's in a boom. I know everyone is loving golf. I don't know how to say this without it coming across as, I don't know what the word is. I'm worried golf's going to fuck it up again.
Yeah, okay.
I'm worried that golf clubs, they're not loving life. That's not the right phrase. They know that lots of them have got waiting lists now, right? So I see it a lot of the time on Twitter, etc. Lots of 50% of clubs, 45% of clubs, whatever it is, have now got waiting lists, which is amazing. Like genuinely amazing. I absolutely love that. I genuinely think that's fantastic. Well done. My issue is that golf clubs start thinking that they are the reason that those waiting lists exist, and they start making decisions the same decisions they made 10, 15 years ago, which led to the decline of golf. So they start, I know it's classic supply and demand, I know it's business, but they start adding on giant joining fees. They start adding on extra cost to membership. Like they just start ramping up prices or whatever. And the game that was starting to get more realistic and more accessible is now going to go back the other way. And as a result, in 5 years' time, we'll be having the conversation of, oh, look, we're back to where we were. How did this happen? I thought we'd done all our good marketing and got people through the door. So that is a genuine concern that we as a community, and I'm including us in this, by the way, as a golf community, that we as a community don't do the right things to keep the game going forward. So I'm really excited that we're going to have this conversation, but that is, for me, like, I'm worried about it. Like, I'm worried that we make the same mistakes we did 5-10 years ago.
So you kind of thinking that the golf clubs are thinking they've got it sussed because right now there's the supply and there's the boom, but that kind of it causes them to sort of rest on their laurels and think that everything they've been doing for the last 7,500 years is still the way to do it, basically.
I 100% ride the wave. Obviously, you're a business. Ride the wave. Like, make sure that you get as many people in through the doors now, and make sure, and more importantly, make sure you deliver an outstanding freaking product, whether that's the course, the community, whatever it is, and keep them in this game. Keep them at your club, keep them in this game, keep them excited about this sport. I have spoken and heard from many general managers, etc., who I know are of the thought process of supply versus demand. Let's now jack up prices. And it's not everyone by any stretch of the imagination. I know it won't be everyone, but I know the thoughts are there, and that really concerns me. That genuinely concerns me, because I think they just end up in 5 years' time back to where we were again.
It ties directly in with what I was going to say. It ties in with the problem that we had post first lockdown. Ties in with the problem that we have on a fairly regular basis. It's tee times for nomadic golfers. You know, a lot of people that have come into the sport now, they're not going to jump straight into a membership. If, you know, like Peter Finch said on the show last week, the challenge is not getting someone to the driving range and getting them to swing at a golf ball. It's then encouraging them to go onto the golf course. There were very, very few clubs that we could get onto to go and play around a golf post lockdown. And I completely understand the golf club's perspective. They want to give preference to members. And that is exactly what the membership is for. You know, you deserve the preferential treatment. But having said that, if you're going to harness all these new members, there has to be, I don't have a solution for it. And I have no idea how the golf clubs are going to manage it. But there needs to be more tee times for the nomad golfers, for the guys that are like us, that don't have memberships, that travel around the M25 to go and play with their mates. It's a tough one. But like Peter Finch said, it's going down the driving range is easy. It's getting someone into the game and keeping them in the game. Is getting them out to a golf course and getting them to enjoy it. And that, I think, is going to be a struggle, because, you know, tee times are likely to be reduced as it is. And then getting on, who knows?
I'll tell you the first thing that can get sorted, and I'm sorry, I have had a moan about this before, but I'm going to moan about it again, because it's going to happen again, I can guarantee, which is that when lockdown gets eased, and it will get eased, I'm happy to report, it will get eased at some point. Driving ranges, for the love of God, set up bookings.
Keep it.
Set up hour slots.
Yeah, love it.
Stop just having a turn up and queue situation, because that's just not the way forward at all. As you know, I'm sure loads of people listening to this would have had experience of, you know, what lockdown ends, you want to go and hit some balls, and you go down. If you can't book a slot ahead, you're met with a queue of half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. Guess what? If you had that one time, you're not going to go back to that driving range. Who's got time to queue for 45 minutes to go and hit golf balls, right? No one's got that time.
It's the 21st century as well. Like, what on earth these driving ranges doing?
And to be honest with you, like, this is where I've had conversations this week with businesses, and I'm saying, look, businesses, driving ranges included, like the driving range that I go to has booking as a result of COVID. I really hope they keep it. I don't know why they'd get rid of it now. It seems to be a great system. They're fully booked the whole time. You then don't have to deal with, as you said, waiting. It doesn't hamper anyone's experience. It probably makes life much easier to manage the place. I don't imagine clubs like places would get rid of the booking system. I think that for me is huge. That for me is a big value add for a consumer that I can just go, yeah, I want to book at 8 p.m. Great, perfect, done. Got my hour slot. Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't think that's a change. For those that have got it, I don't think they'll change. I hope they won't change back, for sure.
So the only other question I've got, and apologies, has literally just come to me now, so I'm 100% going to put you guys on the spot. So apologies, I don't have the answer.
All I can dive into, by the way, as well. So Phil,
pitch and putt.
Yeah.
How many is this? Like, apologies, I've not been to pitch and putt for probably since I was about 10.
For sure.
Are they still like a proper bona fide thing that are out there? Because sure, if there's part of me which thinks that's where the opportunity is. That is the next extension of going from a driving range to actually being out on a course, but not a course.
Yeah.
So I'll jump in with that one. I grew up. It was actually my granddad who got me into the game of golf. He sawed down a couple of old golf clubs, a couple of his old ones, botched up a grip, and I went out with him, pitch and putt. There were 2 local courses. They are no more. Neither of them.
Oh, really?
The 2 courses that I first learned to play golf on. I've never, to be honest, I can't say I've been looking, but I've never seen any other pitch and putt courses, so I wouldn't know.
I mean, a prime example of this, I think this will probably happen more. Hobridge in Woking, they've got the main course, a 9-hole course, which is like a 9-hole course, and a par 3 course. And I think for me, if you remember there, or you start your journey there, they've got the driving range that's got TrackMan in every bay. You then move on to the par 3 course. You then move on to the 9-hole course, and then you move on to the full course. I think that for me is a beautiful, perfect setup for taking someone on the full journey of never swung a golf club to golf addict and is never going to leave the game. So I would love to see more of that. I think for me, a big part of this is getting people involved in your communities, like clubs really building communities and getting people into their community. I think is a huge aspect of this. Because if someone plays a couple of times, if someone plays a couple of times, a couple of times a month, they're questioning whether they're going to renew their membership. If they don't know anyone in the community, they're definitely not going to renew their membership. I think they've just got to get, in my opinion, as a community, golf, we need to get more people involved in the community side of it, not just the playing the golf.
Well, that was the second point I had written down, actually, was golf clubs have really got to take a serious look and go back to the drawing board and have tiers of memberships. We've spoken about it before. Those that you're charging the most money for are typically those that can play the least amount of golf.
It drives me nuts.
I wouldn't have a membership either way. I don't have a car and I live in East London, so there's no chance of me being able to realistically get to a golf course that regularly. But
there are courses that now do, and there are courses that now do. Should I give them a shout out? Yeah, why not? Guildford Golf Club. Tom is the GM or club secretary there. They've got an awesome model. Awesome model. Like they've got your unlimited golf, but then if you don't want to join the full membership, you can there's different tiering systems based on how much you want to play. And I was like, you know why this is so great? It's because it makes sense. Like someone like me who lives relatively close, who I don't want to commit to a full club membership where, I then don't feel like I can come play rounds of golf with you guys every other week. But if I can go there and I can go, well, I can commit to 20 rounds of golf, I'm in. Like, great. Like, perfect. Because I'll play my 20 rounds of golf and then I don't feel guilty about going and playing somewhere else the week after or, somewhere else. I'm not tied to that club. And I'm fairly certain they, like, from what I understand through brief conversations with them, I really hope it doesn't mind me showing this stuff, but they're getting, they're not, they've got limited green fees for us nomadic golfers because their membership is now so good that they're just, because they've got people on these different tiers, that people want to be part of the club. They want to be involved in the club. They just don't want to be a full membership. But
I fear that.
Go on, mate.
No, I was going to say, I fear that's where in a year's time, if clubs don't alter and adjust, they're going to have a bunch of people that are new into the game that are really excited about playing, sign up to a membership. They're like, yes, I'll pay the fee. Then for whatever happens, the amount that they're playing starts to slow down. Then it comes to the end of the year when it's due for renewal again. And they're like, oh, let me break down how much I actually played. Okay, that averages out at, wow, that's a lot per round. Yeah. That's how golf clubs are going to lose members.
That's like my gym membership.
Brilliant.
But like, but I don't think, like, I think again we've got to get past the point of got people joining golf clubs and thinking that it's just the golf, right? But the problem is lots of golf clubs do act in that manner, and I think the more we get people involved, when you join, it sounds really silly, but when you play five-a-side with your mates, and it's actually, there's so much more to it than actually just the football, right? And it's the same in golf. There's so much more to this game than is just hitting the ball around the golf course. And I think the more we get people involved in that world, the less likely they are to leave, and they'll enjoy it. Like, you've got to increase the level of enjoyment, and you've got to increase the level of getting people involved in the comps, etc. I don't know how. I'm not the expert here.
I just keep coming back to the pathway thing in terms of converting the kind of interest from top golf, hitting balls at the range, and wait, as Pete Finch says, where do you go from there? And this is where I think, and look, I don't know the finances, but surely is there not a bit of a remit where certain golf clubs could have an affiliation or even an ownership of these pitch and putts or these par 3 courses? You make them cheapish, and you don't even need them to be to members. You make them accessible. You allow a moderate loosening of maybe some golf etiquette. Like, I'm not saying obviously you're driving a buggy into the pond or whatever, but it doesn't need to be like, I know, you don't need to have official golf shoes as an example, right? That's the natural progression. That's where you're going to get people kind of starting to kind of see, okay, I don't need to play on the big course, and I'm probably not ready to, and I don't want to spend 70 quid on some green fees, but I'll happily pay 15 quid to go and work my way around a pitch and putt course afterwards. And guess what? If you give them access to your pro shop and the bar afterwards, they're gonna bring some cash into your club. So I just feel like there's a bit of a gap that I feel like could really easily be fixed by, I don't know, maybe a little bit of, I don't know if it's prestige or clubs feeling they can't do this because they want to be premium, but having an attachment to something like a pitch putt or a smaller course, which again just provides that pathway for interested players. Again, that's a business top tip. If anyone wants to take that idea and run with it, you're welcome. It came first.
There's all kinds of barriers and limitations to that in terms of like land available, etc. And
sure. Let's say that, using Ben's example, there's a pitch and putt course that's existed for years and years and years that's in danger of being sold off or is falling into disrepair. Clubs have a bit of a responsibility outside of just their immediate club, right? It's their community, is how it needs to start developing a little bit more. I feel golf clubs at the moment are a little bit of an island and a little bit of a closed shop.
Interesting. Yeah, I really like this idea. I think you're right. I think if there was a good level of progression from driving range to full course, that would make it much less threatening. I think that's really, really good. I actually really like the idea of a course having an affiliation with or owning a par 3 course or whatever, and your full members get free access to that whenever they want, like that kind of deal. But again, I don't know the finances of a golf club and realistically how that would work. But yeah, that is an interesting point of view, and like that's probably why you look at the likes of Hobridge and they're smashed out, fully booked all the time, because you really can.
It's a good little golf club, Hobridge. It's great. The 18-hole course is a pretty good course as well.
I've played the 9-hole there several times. I thoroughly enjoy it. Like it's a good 9-hole course. Like it's a good track. I think the more you can get people into that world, yeah, Tim, you're right. I'm on board with this. I just don't know physically how it happens, but yeah, I'm on board with it. More 9 holes, more pitch and putts, more stuff like that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, And again, guys, if you're listening, let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you've had a problem, let's say, in terms of actually being able to get out and play golf. Is this something you've experienced yourself? If you tried to find somewhere to play golf but you can't, or everything's been booked, or you're not sure if you're ready to go onto a big course yet and you're not sure what your next step is, let us know. We'd love to hear kind of your experiences and any trouble you've been having.
This is what I want to know. I want you, because we're fairly well limited to the southeast here, but I want to know if there is, like, tag them, send us the links for outstanding par 3 courses, pitch and putts, short courses. Yeah. Like, I want to see these because I bet there's
so much fun to play as well.
Say that again.
Yeah, maybe that's what we're after. Maybe someone give us the name of what you think is a really, really, really good, like, pitch and putt course, or like something like that. And maybe once we're actually free to go back into the world again, maybe us three will go and play it for ourselves.
I love it. Video it, film it, challenge. Wait, I mean, Ben's fucked because excuse my language, Ben's screwed because he's got wedge game is intact.
I was going to say, it's what I actually need the most. Short pitch and putt is what my game needs the most.
Yeah, I'd be well up for finding some really decent short tracks and par 3s, pitch and putts. Be well up for that.
Agreed.
Awesome. Sweet. So I think we've covered, I mean, actually so much more than I thought we were going to cover, but pleasure as always. Anything else to add before we wrap this one up?
Anything else? Next week,
who wants to talk? Chris,
I'll just
do a teaser for it. Do a teaser.
We've screwed this up once before by mentioning a guest's name before they actually come on. But next week we have lined up to have Steve Furlonger on. He is, I mean, his growth on social media has been incredible over the last couple of weeks. He's all about power, getting more power in your golf swing, ground reaction forces. It's going to be excellent. Luckily, what we're going to do is take his sciencey brain and hopefully turn it into language that we can all understand. He's quite good at that anyway, if I'm honest. But I'm looking forward to it. It's that he's got the same tech that Bryson uses. I think he's the only person in the UK with this tech. It's awesome. So I'm looking forward to having Steve on next week.
Brilliant. Look forward to it. As ever, keep yourself well, keep safe, and we'll see you next week. Thanks all.
Peace.
Bye.